Introduction: The weight of chaos. Have you ever noticed how the harder you chase control, the more life slips through your fingers? You plan every detail, argue every point, defend every move, yet somehow, chaos finds its way in. People lie, betray, insult, and provoke. Storms roll in whether you invite them or not. And the more you react, the more you drown. But what if I told you that freedom doesn't come from controlling the storm, but from learning to stand still inside it? The ancient Stoics Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius faced war, betrayal, exile, and death. Yet they walked with calm, clear eyes while everyone else was losing theirs. 2,000 years later, their lessons are not just history. They are survival skills for a world that still thrives on chaos. In this video, we'll uncover 12 timeless Stoic lessons that will sharpen your mind, steady your heart, and free you from the traps of anger, fear, and manipulation. Each one is a weapon. Each one a shield. By the end, you'll see why the Stoic is unshakable, calm in crisis, powerful in silence, untouchable in dignity. So stay with me until the end, because the final lesson will shift your entire perspective. And if you find value here, consider subscribing to Sculpted Grace, not for me, but for yourself. Because every lesson you master sharpens your spirit. Let's get started. Lesson 1: Focus on what you can control. The foundation of Stoicism rests on a deceptively simple truth: some things are within our control, and some are not. Epictetus opened his Enchiridion with this very line, and it has echoed across centuries for good reason. Most of our suffering does not come from reality itself, but from wrestling with what we cannot change. Think about how much time is wasted raging at traffic, obsessing over someone else's opinion, or agonizing over outcomes that lie entirely outside our influence. The Stoic reminds us that peace comes not from bending the world to our will, but from mastering our response to it. Imagine standing in the rain. You can curse the sky all day, but the rain won't stop. A wiser approach is to open an umbrella, adjust your stride, and continue on your way. The storm may not obey you, but your actions still belong to you. This lesson has countless modern applications. Consider an athlete preparing for a championship game. She cannot control the referee's calls, the weather, or the performance of the opposing team. Lesson 3: Control what you can, accept what you can't. One of the most liberating Stoic teachings comes from Epictetus: some things are in our control and others not. That simple truth forms the backbone of Stoic resilience. Think of how much suffering comes not from events themselves, but from resisting them, raging at traffic, agonizing over someone else's choices, worrying about tomorrow's storms. The Stoics remind us that freedom begins when we draw a line between what belongs to us, our thoughts, choices, actions, and what does not, other people's opinions, fortune, even our own reputation. If you spend your life wrestling with the things outside your control, you'll always be chained to frustration. But if you learn to focus only on what is yours, you become unshakable. Let me give you an example. Imagine an athlete training for the Olympics. She cannot control the weather on race day, the performance of her competitors, or even whether her body avoids injury. But she can control how diligently she trains, how carefully she recovers, and how focused she stays under pressure. If she obsesses about outcomes, she risks despair. If she grounds herself in what she can do, she finds peace regardless of the results. We can apply the same in daily life. You cannot control whether a colleague respects you, but you can control how you treat them. You cannot control whether the market crashes, but you can control how wisely you save. And here lies the great paradox: by narrowing your attention to what is truly yours, you expand your power. Acceptance is not surrender. It is clarity. The moment you stop wasting energy on what is beyond you, you have more strength to master what is within. Lesson 4: Practice voluntary discomfort. Seneca once wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" Why? Because most of our anxiety about life doesn't come from hardship itself, but from the fear of hardship. We dread losing comfort, dread losing wealth, dread losing approval. But the Stoics knew that if you deliberately step into discomfort, if you taste hunger, cold, or rejection on your own terms, you strip fear of its power. By practicing hardship when you don't need to, you become stronger for the moments when you do. Picture someone who chooses to walk to work instead of driving, not because they must, but because they want to practice endurance. Or someone who takes cold showers, fasts for a day. Lesson 6: Focus only on what you can control. At the heart of Stoicism lies a single, liberating truth: some things are in our control, and others are not. Epictetus opens his Enchiridion with this very idea, writing that our opinions, desires, and actions are within our power, but everything else, our bodies, wealth, reputation, even the actions of others, lie outside of it. This distinction is the cornerstone of freedom. Imagine how much suffering comes from demanding control over things that were never yours to command. The weather ruins your plans, a colleague misjudges your work, a loved one says something hurtful. You cannot stop these things from happening, but you can decide how to meet them. That decision, and only that decision, is yours. Think of an athlete preparing for a race. She can control her training, her diet, her mindset, but not the weather on race day, not her competitor's performance, not the fairness of the referees. If she obsesses over those, she will waste energy and poison her focus. But if she keeps her attention only on her own preparation and effort, she runs freely, without chains. The Stoics teach us to do the same in life. When insulted, you cannot control the words, but you can control whether they penetrate. When betrayed, you cannot undo the act, but you can control whether it hardens your heart or strengthens your wisdom. Each time you shift your focus back to what is yours, your thoughts, your actions, you reclaim power. And each time you chase control over what isn't yours, you hand that power away. Lesson 7: accept discomfort and hardship. The Stoics never promised an easy life. They promised a strong one. To them, hardship was not an obstacle but the very ground on which virtue grows. Seneca often reminded his students that comfort weakens the soul, while struggle tempers it like fire-hardened steel. Think of the soldier who only trains in mild weather, who never marches in rain or cold. The first storm will break him. But the one who welcomes hardship as training, who treats every discomfort as an ally, becomes unshakable. Discomfort is not a curse, it is the sharpening stone that polishes our character. In today's world, hardship shows up in many forms: failure at work, rejection in relationships, financial setbacks, health challenges. Our instinct is to resist, to cry out, "Why me?" But the Stoic reframes the question. Not why me, but for what purpose? Marcus Aurelius. Lesson 9, Value time as your most precious resource. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." To the Stoics, time was the only true currency, far more valuable than gold, silver, or land. Money lost can be earned again, possessions stolen can be replaced, but every hour spent is gone forever. And yet, most of us guard our wallets more fiercely than our days. We say yes to endless distractions, shallow entertainment, or toxic people who drain our energy, forgetting that the clock is always ticking. A wise Stoic sees time as sacred, not to be hoarded in fear but to be used deliberately, with clarity and purpose. Think about how this applies today. How many hours vanish into scrolling through feeds, arguing online, or dwelling on slights that will not matter in a week? Contrast that with someone who invests the same time into learning a skill, strengthening the body, or nurturing true friendships. The difference is not small, it is life itself. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire, reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do, say, and think. For us, that doesn't mean rushing frantically, but choosing wisely. When you treat time as treasure, you stop wasting it on what is trivial and start spending it on what builds character, creates beauty, and leaves a legacy. The Stoic lives not in endless postponement, but in conscious presence, savoring each moment as if it were borrowed. Lesson 10, Live in harmony with nature. For the Stoics, living according to nature was not about running off into the forest or rejecting society. It meant aligning your life with the order of the universe, the natural laws of cause and effect, growth and decay, birth and death. Nature teaches us balance, the seasons change, storms come and go, rivers flow and reshape the land. To resist this flow is to suffer needlessly. To accept it is to find peace. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he was not separate from nature but a fragment of it, like a leaf on the tree or a wave in the sea. To live in harmony meant recognizing that just as the leaf must fall in autumn, so too must humans accept change, loss, and eventual death. Applied today, this teaching is more relevant than ever. Living in harmony with nature means accepting the cycles of our own lives, the highs and lows, successes and failures, beginnings and endings. It means listening to the body, nourishing it with rest, movement, and simplicity, rather than fighting against its. Lesson 12, Contemplate mortality, memento mori. If there is one Stoic practice that cuts through illusion like a blade, it is the remembrance of death, memento mori. To the Stoics, this was not morbid or depressing, but liberating. By reflecting on the certainty of death, they stripped away trivial worries and focused on what truly mattered. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing." When you realize that your days are finite, that each sunrise might be your last, then suddenly arguments, grudges, and shallow pursuits lose their grip. Death is the great clarifier, the reminder that all we have is the present moment and what we choose to do with it. In modern life, memento mori can be a compass guiding us toward deeper meaning. Think of how many hours slip away in anxiety about the future or regret about the past, while the present is neglected. Contemplating mortality reorders our priorities. The person who remembers death is less likely to delay saying "I love you," less likely to waste years chasing hollow status, and more likely to invest in what is enduring: character, wisdom, kindness, and service. Marcus Aurelius carried this awareness constantly, reminding himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Imagine if we lived each day with that clarity. Far from paralyzing us, it would free us to act boldly, love deeply, and walk through life with purpose. Death is not the enemy. Forgetting to live before it arrives, that is the true tragedy. The Stoic mindset: how to remain unshakable in the face of manipulation and chaos. The battlefield of life is not always fought with swords and shields, it is fought in the arena of perception, reaction, and self-mastery. Manipulators, liars, and even the storms of fortune itself thrive not because they are stronger, but because they exploit our emotions. They twist guilt, magnify shame, and drain us with exhaustion until we surrender our peace. The Stoics understood this game thousands of years ago. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control, others are not." This single sentence is the sword and shield of the Stoic. The moment you learn to separate what belongs to you, your thoughts, your choices, your actions, from what does not, others' opinions, fate, fortune, you step out of the trap. You stop being a pawn, and you become the player. Imagine standing in a storm. Winds whip, rain lashes, thunder roars. The ordinary man panics, runs, curses the sky.